Welcome to the first of our screencasts for AP Government this year. Our first topic today is constitutional influences. We're going to look at some of the things that influenced how the Founding Fathers created the document that would become the Constitution. And so we're going to start with the British customs and traditions. You have to remember that the Founding Fathers had a lot of experience with British custom and tradition. They learned about government by studying and living through the influences of things like the Magna Carta and the English Bill of Rights, and this sense that there's a greater purpose to government. Now, at the same time, though, the Founding Fathers were very well read with the Enlightenment philosophers. And they got a few things from these Enlightenment philosophers. From John Locke, what they focused on was this idea that people are born with natural rights. And these natural rights are life, liberty, and property. And the job of government is to preserve and protect your natural rights. So if government is interfering with your life, your liberty, or your property, then what Locke says is that you have the right to replace that government. If you move on to Montesquieu, Montesquieu is the real key here in providing this idea that the ideal government be separated into the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. So there's checks and balances, separation of powers, key founding principles that we're going to actually be discussing a little bit later. And then you have Rousseau, who gave the idea of a social contract, that power does not lie in a ruler, it lies in the community as a whole. And, the Constitution starts with that phrase, "we the people," and that you can see the echoes of that from Rousseau in the social contract. If you look at the colonial experience of our founding fathers, a lot of them were involved in writing state constitutions. The preambles of many of those constitutions that came after the Declaration of Independence look a lot like the preamble to the United States Constitution. We saw experimentation in the colonies with legislative bodies being the dominant force in government, representation being a key issue. We saw weak executives, strong executives. So a lot of different colonial experiences helped to shape the direction that the Founding Fathers wanted to take our Constitution. And then finally, the last thing that really influenced the crafting of the Constitution is the fact that the Founding Fathers knew that the Articles of Confederation were weak. It was really, the document could be described as a league of friendship. There wasn't really a unifying force to it. There wasn't a key component that made a strong national government. Instead, it was an agreement between several semi-related states as to how they would operate and function. And remember, there were key weaknesses. There was no power to tax. There was no chief executive. There was no national judiciary. No power to regulate commerce, and no national currency. Those were all things that would be addressed by the Constitution. So when you look at the Constitution, you will see some of these things dealt with. And later on this week, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the articles themselves, and you're going to compare that to the Constitution, as we've already looked at it, and see where the strengths and weaknesses and the influences lie in this. So that gives us a nice little brief introduction to some of the influences on the Constitution, some of the things that brought the Founding Fathers to create the document that we see before us when we look at the Constitution.